a lot of this than I am. So, but that's what we'll be looking at, both achievement and growth as we go through. And as we go, we're such a small group. Like if you have any questions, we don't need to save them till the end. You can just unmute and ask if you have a question. And if I don't have the answer, I think Sonia will. So, Tom, I should stop real quick. Tom, you know Sonia Greenway?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
And do you know Miss Mader, our 8th grade science teacher?
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
I thought so. It's Estes Park. I forget sometimes. We don't need to do introductions, and then Mr. Norton is our special ed teacher. He should be jumping in when he gets out of an IEP meeting. And then Jason Kushner from the school board is hopefully going to be jumping in also. So there's
Okay.
Tom. We can see you now, Tom.
I've given you privilege to see me now.
Okay, now you can just give me thumbs up. You don't have to unmute every time if you don't want to. Okay, awesome. All right. So just before we dig in deep, things in the district that we'll be looking at, the district assessment we use at the middle school, we call MAPS, NWEA MAPS is its official name. Here we just say we're taking MAPS. Our district started using it in 2014 as a benchmark assessment. We really didn't have anything up to that point that we were using consistently. And it is available for reading, language usage, math, and science. I will just touch on language usage right now. We were giving the language usage until a couple years ago. We really found a multiple choice test for language usage was not giving us anything we really needed. We needed to see how kids were writing and evaluate that writing. So we've stopped giving the language usage, and the middle school has adopted a writing rubric, a school-wide writing rubric that all teachers use to review writing, and it's given 3 times a year. We do a beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of year assessment here at the middle school. So that's why you won't see scores for language usage here, but we give reading, math, and science. So Dibbles is just for elementary school. We're not using Dibbles here. So Tom, you've maybe heard the kids talk about taking MAPS. All right, next one then. Looking to move. I tried my arrow. There we go. Sorry. Things to think about as we're going through. Each building, they really have given us autonomy as to when we're giving district assessments. A few years ago, so the MAPS can be given 3 times a year. The middle school stopped giving the end of year for a couple of reasons. So we give it in the fall and we give it in the winter. We really found in the spring that our kids had testing fatigue. You would get through CMAS and it was the end of April and you'd take a week off and then you had to give MAPS. We also give MAPS so that teachers can adjust their instruction. That's why we give it. And we were giving it in the middle of May and school was done. And it's not like they were using that student data to adjust their instruction in the fall. So really for those 2 main reasons, you'll see that middle school has fall data and winter data. And we've gotten really good. You can look at it from fall to winter, but we can also look at it from winter to winter to winter. So you could look at Hannah, winter of 6th grade to winter of 7th grade to winter of 8th grade. So we're still getting that full year and we're avoiding that testing in the spring. So we're pretty happy with getting out of that. I think it's made a difference for our kids. So also COVID just affects scheduling. So when you look at the data, you'll just see it's winter data. When we look at NWEA, it's winter data for the middle school, and that would be last winter. And we took it as late in the winter window as we could. It was like 2nd and 3rd week of February that we took it. All right. Arrow won't work. Then in the state, what you'll see is CMAS. And in 2020, we did not, because of COVID, there was no CMAS. And then in 2021, the state decided it was limited CMAS. So our students have always taken English language arts and math, and then our 8th graders have always taken science. The state decided they were just going to do 1 of those, except our 8th graders did 2. So you can see here, ELA was grade 7 did English language arts and grade 6 and 8 did math. So those are the scores that you'll see, and then you'll see our science. Things to consider when we're looking at NWEA, and this may look like a whole lot of a lot of numbers, but they use what's called a RIT score, and it talks about it here. They sample between 3.6 and 5.5 million test scores from between 500,000 and 700,000 students from over 24,000 public schools. So we're really confident in using NWEA. It's pretty well known across the nation. And so they use what's called a RIT score. And you can look here, like if you had this is the reading chart. So it's a normed RIT. So if I looked at 6th grade in the winter, we'd be looking for a mean score of 213. So the link there takes you to, there's a chart just like that for math. There's a chart like that for language usage, and there's a chart like that for science. So we don't have to look at all those, but we look at those all the time, and kids have gotten pretty comfortable knowing what their score is and what their growth goal is. We'll talk about growth here in just a minute. So going fast. So there's the math. This one actually is talking about standard deviation, isn't it? Yeah. So growth norms, they did change. They came out, I think it was in 2015, they had new norms for us. And then they came out in 2020 that they had renormed. So they show mean growth. I don't know that one. This one's for math. Again, something we look at when we're reviewing scores. These next ones are just participation. I think it's important to show, like, we get absolutely as many kids to take NWEA as possible. I would hope for 100%. COVID last winter made it kind of hard to get 100%. There is a window that you need to take the test, and some kids were out in quarantine. Some had like a double quarantine. So that's part of the reason. We only have right now in the school this year, we only have one student whose parent has opted them out of NWEA for their own personal reasons. So we really aim for 100% of kids. And if they're gone, we've got a pretty good makeup system that's run through the library, and the librarian will pull kids and they have a chance then to make it up, because it's data that we really use. Instructors, teachers dig deep into this and work on changing instruction based on the results. So really what you're just seeing here is, like, in 6th grade, 98.4% of our 6th graders took the MAP assessment. So it's not like we're picking and choosing kids, anything like that. We're trying to get everybody to take it. And then the reading participation, 6th grade's up there really well again. And then you can see 7th and 8th right there at about 90. And then we're at 89% taking it. And that's all on, teachers have done such a great job of scheduling it within their schedule. And we've really worked a little bit on when is best for them to take it, like not taking 3 in one day, but spreading them out. And that's all been on, the teachers have organized that. So this is science participation. So again, that's just our 3rd participation. So the first one here, then what we're looking at is math. And this would be achievement, not growth. So again, remember, we'll look at achievement and we'll look at growth. And this is math. And the norm is the green dot. And then the purple, and where the line is where we were at. And this would be last winter, so last February's math. And I went ahead and left elementary through 10th grade in here. Just, I thought you might be interested to get kind of a bigger picture of things. And I think most people know math is an area we've been working really hard at the middle school. We're super excited. We got the new curriculum in August, and hoping to see, our growth is, you'll see the growth in a minute, but we're hoping to see some changes with that new curriculum in place also. Hi, Jason. Jason, do you know Tom Cousineau?
I do.
Okay, great. And you know Miss Greenway, and you know Miss Mater.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Awesome. So and again, we're still on NWEA, and that would be math. And then next would be reading. You can see reading, we're at or above. So a little bit better than the math comes in. 6th grade, almost there. 7th and 8th, right there at where the norm is for English language arts. And again, not language usage. This would just be reading. And holler if I'm going too fast. You want to spend any more time on a slide or. All right, and then the next one then would be science. And science is just an area our kids have always been strong in science. And I say, you have to be a really good reader to do pretty well on the science NWEA, but we still, we're good in reading, but even compared to reading, our science scores are fantastic. So you can see the norm there with the green dot, and then the purple top is where we came in at. So elementary doesn't consistently give the science, so you won't see that on here. I think one or two teachers give it like in 5th grade. So for a lot of these kids, it's the first time they've taken it in 6th grade that they've taken the science. So we're super proud of that. And one of our science teachers is Miss Mater. So good job, Miss Mater. Yay. All right. So then we're going to switch to growth. Okay. So MAP is pretty cool. When a kid takes it in the fall and say they get a 217, it projects what they should get in the winter. It, with its formula, says, okay, based on your score in the fall and your history, we're projecting you should grow 4 points by winter and get a 221 or whatever those numbers are. And kids know those. We set goals around those. So this again would be meeting their growth. So if you look at 6th grade, and again, we're in math, and the green dot would be the norm. And then the purple is where we came in for growth. So that for 6th grade was 5 points, and the norm was 4.81. 7th grade, we beat. 8th grade struggled. We had a switch mid-year in math teachers, and it really, it just disrupted learning, and I don't want to make any excuses. Sometimes 8th grade's just a hard year, but 8th grade is what it is, there for growth in math. But we feel like middle school is where we grow them in about everything. So super proud of what we're seeing here for 6th and 7th grade.
And teachers have done deep dives into that data and really looked at, oh, look at that gap, or wow, a huge percentage kids didn't hit that target, and then they can adjust that instruction. So that's happening as well. When we see a gap like that, and we set a goal, so the math team will set a goal, what are we going to do to get there? And the entire building this year is focused on math as well. So it's happening interdisciplinary wise as well. So we're pretty hopeful we're going to see big growth.
Yep.
And then hit those achievement marks as well.
Thank you, Sonia.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next is our science growth. And again, we're achieving super high in science, but look at this, we're still growing super high in science. So, I mean, look at just across the board, really, really proud. Ruby did discuss, I know when she presented, that not as many schools give science, but for me, that doesn't change our great results. That it's still given, certainly, and it is still normed. It's not normed with 5.5 million assessments. That number is different, but our kids are science kids up here and a lot of us have theories. Yeah. Achievement and growth on science are both high. All right. This is just participation by our subgroups. So again, what percent of each one of those subgroups took the test? Oh, I did move to CMAS, sorry. So we're going to leave that was my last slide about NWEA, which again is the benchmark that we give here at the school 2 times a year in the fall and the winter. So that's the end of NWEA. And then we're going to switch. Thank you, Sonia. Sonia's keeping me on track. I know, right? So this is now CMAS, which would have been last spring. And even though like our participation numbers were not where we have typically been, middle school usually comes in at 91 or 92%. So, but compared to the state, our participation rates were fantastic, which says a lot about what was going on in the state last spring. So you can just see by subgroup what percent of each of those groups took the assessment. All right. So this one, you have to look close along the bottom. This gets, because they only took one test, usually we'd have a math slide and we'd have an English language arts slide, but because they only took one test. When we're looking at CMAS score, so this is achievement as compared to the state. If you look at 6th grade, you're looking at math because that's the only one they took. So the state came in at a 726 and we came in at a 721. And that's for math. When you look at 7th grade, you're actually looking at English language arts. And the state's at 741. We were at almost 750, so 749.9. And then 8th grade took math. And you can see we're below the state then on the math again. Again, we're growing them though. Like if you look back to elementary school, we're getting closer and closer. We're growing them, and we're getting closer and closer on the achievement. So that's that one. Then this would be growth. And this was really hard. Ruby, I tried to find growth data and it was just really hard because there was no testing in 2020. So to even get growth data, it had to go back to 19. And I'll just say Ruby did it and I trust all of whatever she did with CDE because I couldn't even find it. So what you're seeing here then is compared to the state. So if you look at 6th grade math, we grew at 62 and the state was at 33. So we have a ways to go on achievement and we all know that, but this shows me we're getting there and we're doing the right work. So we're really super proud of this. 7th grade, same thing in English language arts, beat the state by 24. And then 8th grade math, again, that was one we were really worried about achievement, yet they are growing. And this would be, again, last year's students. All right. This one just then breaks it out by subgroup. Move it like that. So I'll give you a minute to look at this one. On the left is the math, and on the right is the English language arts. And then it's minority, non-minority, free and reduced. So Tom, that would be any of our students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And we've been, well, everything's free now, but when we were identifying free and reduced here at the middle school, we were between 35 and 40% of our kids did qualify for free and reduced lunch. So again, this is all growth and you can see we're above the state in every category. Super, super proud of that. We've done so much work around with our ELD population and they are growing. This one, I don't know how Ruby even got this one figured out. So, and Sonia, you stop me if I even get this wrong. So they're looking at students that make either typical growth or high growth. And what she did was she compared 16, 17 growth to 18, 19, and that's in the lighter purple. And then she pulled out 18, 19 to 2021 growth. So if you look at like the 5th to 7th grade, so those would have been our 7th graders last spring. So Tom, Hannah would be in that column. So, right, they were 80.1% and we dropped a little bit to 77.8. You look at the next one, the 6th grade to 8th grade, we're actually a little bit higher. The 4th to 6th grade, look at that one when they were in 4th grade, they were at 47.2. We tested them in 6th grade last year, they were at 71.7. So we had 9 days of missed school because of a fire. We were in and out of school because of COVID more times than I can count. And our kids still grew. So that's what that one says to me. If I had to read it going back that many years, but they were growing like this back when they were in 4th grade, but they grew like this in 6th grade.
I think it feels much less daunting than to shoot for 100. Like of all of our kids make typical to high growth when we're looking at almost 80% and 80% in some cases. I think it feels really hopeful, like, oh, the work we're doing is the right work and we can reach those lofty goals that we'd like to see for ourselves. If we could do this in the last couple of years where it's been so difficult.
Yes. Think what we can do when we're here every day for the most part and in person and not remote. All right. And then this is the WIDA Access is what our English language development students take this assessment. It's taken in, it's like February to March. It's a really big window. It's a pretty in-depth assessment. They get assessed on reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So this is just showing, right, it's the state norm and then where we came in at. And you can see across the years, like if you look at 2018, holy smokes, what was happening there? 2019, we're about even. And then 2020, and our kids were able to test in 2020 because remember we shut down March 13th. So we actually got results on, we don't on CMAS, but we have WIDA results on this. So 2020, great results on our kids, and 2021, the kids that took it last spring, we are ahead of the state again. And this is when we talk about like kids exiting ELD, this would be the assessment they're taking that tells us what level they're at, like where they're at in their language development, or if they're ready to exit the ELD program. And 100% of our kids took the WIDA test this last spring. I think that's my last slide. I'm just whipping through slides. Sonia, what did I miss?
I think you got it all.
I mean, I like Sonia touched on really what we do with this, and that's the key thing, right? We're not assessing kids just to assess kids. We're using data at the middle school. We spent August and September looking through results of both CMAS, and then once the NWEA results came in, it's a lot of our PLC work. So the PLCs are meeting once a week to talk just about instruction. And it's this kind of data that drives that meeting and then drives our instruction. So we don't like to give tests just to give tests. We like to make sure that we're, using that information. And then the whole other assessments we haven't touched on, but we value classroom assessments. It's a big focus of ours this year is to get more aligned with our assessments throughout the building, give teachers a chance to look at each other's assessments. I think people can hold those kind of personal to themselves. And that's our work this year that we've been doing is looking at assessment. So that's just a whole nother piece of the puzzle and a big piece for us, the day-to-day piece. So Tom or Jason, anybody have any questions? Oh my gosh, I was supposed to record this. You did? She's so much smarter than I am. Oh my gosh. Did you really? Thank you. Heather gooched it like 3:25 was like, don't forget to record it. So thank you, Sonia. Jason, I know you've seen this before, but Jason or Tom, if you've got any questions that we would sure try to answer them or thoughts or. No, Tom, you're good?
I really don't have any
Okay.
questions. I appreciate it though. I appreciate
Okay.
the information.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Thanks.
Jason?
Yeah, I mean, you really should give huge congratulations to your team for all the growth.
Yep.
So obviously you guys have been working hard. I think it's paying off.
Yep.
And Jessica, the science scores are amazing. I want to know how do we get such good science scores?
That team is.
Science is just a lot of fun. I think there's high engagement. I really do. I mean, the labs, the hands-on learning, I think that ties a lot into it. That's just my thoughts.
But your team is really laser focused on learning and personalizing it and really making sure kids are hitting targets. And the science team has worked really hard on aligning what they're doing at each grade level. And now that the standards have changed, really tracking the looping aspect of the new science standards. It's been a lot of really hard work. And I think we see it paying off every year. And kids are really engaged. There's so much great stuff happening in science.
I'll be curious too, because science is on the schedule for curriculum adoption this year. So, right, when we were adopting math curriculum, we were all like pulling our hair out, like we need new math curriculum. Look, we're struggling. Well, science, yes, we need a new curriculum, but we're doing really well. I just think it'll be a whole different conversation driven in a different way than we were in almost a crisis in math. I felt close to a crisis, like we've got to get something really good. And science, we're in this really good position. Like I look at it, Jesse, is what can we do to enhance what we're already doing in science? I don't think we need a boxed curriculum. That's my own thought, because what we're doing is so good. So what things can we just sprinkle in that would help science? The other shout out I'd give to science is they have been really supporting math. All of them throughout science in their lessons are providing all kinds of instruction for math. And we know those go hand in hand, but the science team also knows that that's where our kids need a lot of extra support. So kids are getting math also in science, maybe more than the typical science students would. So. Okay,
So I have a question.
yeah.
What, generally when you hear parents talking in circles and whatever, what would you say is the most misinformation thing you've heard repeated by parents?
Huh.
That's hard. As far as like in general.
Yeah, I'm just curious because you can get in these circles with parents and they're just can be very negative, and it's like, well, is that true? That doesn't sound true, or anything like that. No.
I'm not sure those get to us, Tom.
Oh, okay. Uh, no, I was just curious if you're like you hear something or parents bring something up to you, and go, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. Those kind of things. I don't know if any of that comes up or.
Not much. I will say we battle some of the, I don't want my child to take CMAS because I don't believe in standardized testing. We
Okay.
definitely all spring, that gets to be kind of I hate to say battle, but my conversations with parents of like, why would we not want to know where they're at? Like, why, right? As a parent, Tom, why would you not want to know where Hannah is compared to other kids in the nation? And it's not as miserable as it seems. Like the math test is three assessments that take about 45 minutes. So I think I'd say we battle that just a little bit. That's conversations that we have regularly around state assessments. And then I always say, well, as long as they're still taking the SAT, right? Like I'd hate for the very first time a kid takes a standardized test to be in 10th grade and they've never sat in that environment, even that, oh, my water bottle needs to be on the floor and I can't have my earbuds in my ear. And I think there's just a lot of benefits. I have that conversation with lots of parents.
I think if those conversations come up, I just would so encourage you to go. They would love to hear what your questions. We would love to have parents call us or email us or contact us or come to these meetings and just ask. And if we don't know, we can't answer. We would love to hear more from parents. I'm thrilled you're here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to hear those voices. It's such an important stakeholder. Kids are most important, but parents pretty darn close second, and we've got to hear from parents in the community. We need to hear those voices.
I would love to ask you, Tom, how the student-led conferences went for the girls. You don't have to talk specifics because we're recording, but like you as a parent.
Yeah, I think it goes good. Our students are generally, they do pretty well. So all three of our kids did student-led conferences, and I would say it went well. I think maybe we miss a little bit of being able to dig in with each teacher. Like how the open format was, obviously. So being able to visit with each middle school teacher and say, no, how are they doing here? How are they doing there? We missed. We trust our kids to give us good information, but I would say that's the one part we missed was that. And I understand that with COVID and all that kind of stuff, but so it's good. And I think generally we listen to the kids' presentation, which we know all of it already. I'm sure some parents are like, oh, what? But we already know all of it. It's not new to us. I think that's Nicole's comment commonly is this isn't anything new. And then commonly we want that little extra 10 minutes at the end to really ask the teacher, where does this, where do our students need to grow and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
It's more the teacher connection than it is the student reporting for us, but I'm sure not all households are like that, right?
Okay, thank you. That's good for me to
Yeah.
hear. Okay. All right, anybody, anything else?
Janet, just one thought. I
Yeah,
noticed for me, it's hard to get here. Like the kids walk out the door at 3:25.
Yeah,
It's pretty hard to get here for a 3:30 Zoom meeting. I don't know if
Yeah.
it'd make a difference or not, but maybe
Well,
push it to 3:45.
you know why this started out is, it's so, our representatives used to have to be to DAC at 4 o'clock.
Right.
Well, now the DAC is like on Mondays during our staff meetings, so I can't even wrap my brain around that one. So I can easily move this to 3:45 or even 4 if we needed to. That's not the 3:30 stuck, honestly, Jason, from like 2 years ago when Wendy was like, well, your 2 people have to run from here to get to DAC, and we don't have to do that anymore. So
Right.
that's an easy fix for me. I'm gonna remember that. Sonia's gonna make me remember that.
For parents to get here at those times if they're still at work.
Yeah.
or-
Yeah. The Zoom, I think the Zoom has helped. It's so curious to me, right? We never ever did Zoom before COVID. And
Mhm.
now I'm like, oh my gosh, we should always do like conferences and Jason, I know you've heard this, but Tom, our conference participation went from about 35% to, we had out of 240 kids, we had about 30 not do a student-led conference. So they ended up doing one with either Miss Greenway or myself or the counselor. So technically we can say 100%, but that's pretty darn good when 210 out of 240 had a conference. And I think it's because it was Zoom. Like we had some parents do it from work. Like, I'm just going to step out of the room. My kid's at home on Zoom. I'm in a closet at work on Zoom, and the teacher's at school. And we had this great presentation. So I always am still looking for the silver linings from COVID. And I think the use of Zoom has been one of the silver linings. So I think there's just this shift from elementary to middle school with parent involvement. Like it just happens kind of subtly. Like I know you can't volunteer at elementary with COVID anymore, but parents used to be, you had to kick them out of the hallways. You had so many parents in the building. And here at the middle school, they're like, I'm going to drop them, you go, and we're going to let those people take care of you for the day. We just don't get quite the parent contact that they do at elementary schools. So curious.
Can I ask one other question? That actually, I haven't heard this from parents, but I've heard it from kids. Well, especially because I have an 8th grader. How come 6th and 7th grade can go into the building at 7:50, but the 8th graders can't till 7:55?
So 7th and 8th share the hallway upstairs, and
Uh-huh.
it is like, it's a lot. Like there's about 160 of them. We've tried to split the lockers and keep them at different ends. We're
Uh-huh.
trying to give those 7th graders a few minutes to get here and actually get in their rooms, like get their breakfast, get in their room. 6th graders are out of the way, and then the 8th graders come in, and they're basically about the only ones on the stairs or in the hallway. So there's where it came from. I just make COVID protocols up. When nobody told me what they are, I try to think like, what's the safest thing we can do? And I got to tell you, mornings here used to be like 240 kids all in the commons. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So that's the separate entrances. And then this year we decided to try the 5-minute thing. So yeah, maybe in January, we should flip it.
I front door every morning. So Jason, I hear this a lot. I'm like, here's what you can do. You write a proposal. Get kids
Yeah.
to sign it, go through the process. Miss Banning will listen to you. They're like, why did they get to go in? We're freezing.
We could flip it in
We
January.
could totally flip it and.
Yeah, it's really the 7th, 8th, the 6th are no issue because they're downstairs. It's really just all those 7th and 8th graders upstairs all at the same time. So COVID,
Great.
that's my answer.
Great, thank you.
But maybe my king can spearhead that movement.
I'd love that movement.
Like you tell them, hey, put something together.
Yeah. Did you make them hot chocolate one day?
Yeah.
Did you know Miss Greenway made hot chocolate she runs the 8th grade door and was handing out hot chocolate one day.
That is so sweet.
One totally spilled all. I think the stain is still there. So I apologize for that. It was cold that day.
All right, anything from anybody else? Miss Mater, I appreciate you being here. I know you've had a really busy day, and Tom, I know you had to figure out work, and Jason had to run home, so thank you to everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate everybody. And our next meeting's sometime in February.
Yeah,
Um,
Tom, invite some friends.
One friend, did he just, say one friend?
I will invite friends, but if we can know the date sooner, I schedule my work like 6 to 8 weeks out.
I could
So
ask when
if
you
I
go.
don't get the date soon enough, then all of a sudden I gotta like bend my schedule really hard to,
I could tell you right now if I can
if we know it.
find it.
I just
might-
know some parents, if some parents are motivated, the sooner the date, they'll put it on their calendar, and then
Yep,
life doesn't fill in around it. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what's on the
Yep.
calendar.
February 8th, but I'm gonna work on changing the time to either a
Okay.
3:45 or a 4, but it's February 8th.
And I
I'll-
can't
I'll
imagine
email ya.
a 4 o'clock, I agree, would be better for
Better,
anybody, even anybody working. It's like,
Yeah.
it's okay,
yeah, well, there's no reason we can't change that because we don't have the weird conflict we used to have, so I appreciate you guys saying something. Okay, all good?
Yeah.
I was gonna give an update on athletics, but we're getting geared up for wrestling starts in January, and girls basketball. We have 41 kids signed up for wrestling, so
Whoa.
say a little prayer because we're gonna need it. We're excited. So it's a good problem to have, and we have enough girls to have a 7th grade team and an 8th grade team, probably not an A and B on both, but I was kind of worried about that. But we definitely have enough girls for a 7th grade and 8th grade team. And boys basketball, we're kind of in the thick of that season right now. So that's the update on athletics. I
Great.
think I'm the new athletic director, so I thought I should give an update. There you go.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a good day. What's left of it.